As the election year draws close, calls for young people's inclusion in leadership across the nation have intensified. Some people believe that the practice of recycling old generation of leaders is responsible for the nation's challenges in a number of ways. First, they argue that the old generation are the crop of leaders that have brought this country to the current mess that she finds herself in, and therefore cannot be trusted to provide the solution. Secondly, they also argue that the old generation has run out of ideas on how to solve the nation's challenges. That if they hadn't run out of ideas, they have had enough opportunities to solve these problems, but they haven't. Thirdly, it's argued also that the old generation of leaders is the primary beneficiary of the failure of the Nigerian public system. They have built economic fortunes and political dynasties out of the nation's misfortunes, and are the least motivated to see any need for change. In fact, it is argued that they will see they're more likely to see those who advocate for change as disruptors and threats to their otherwise well-secured future economically and politically. Fourthly, it's also argued that the old generation is not likely to be around in the next 30 to 40 years, and therefore least motivated to aggressively pursue a better future for this country, since they are not likely to be part of that future. But those who argue in the defense of the old generation say that leadership has nothing per se to do with age. They argue that some young people have been put in positions of leadership and have committed worse abuses than members of the old generation. The old generation, in its own defense, argues that young people are not experienced or mature enough to provide leadership that can surmount the nation's challenges. Young people reply that the only experience that the old generation has is in corruption, incompetence, and manipulation, and that this experience is exactly why the old generation must give way for the country to move forward. The old generation also argues that young people in leadership, being inexperienced, will plunge the nation into depths of development, underdevelopment, unprecedented. To this, the young people respond that the nation is already with its back on the ground and cannot fall any further. Now, this debate is likely to continue to go on forth and back for many years and maybe decades. But the point to make is that age per se has nothing to do with credible leadership. Bad leaders exist across the barriers of age, gender, ethnicity, and religion. And in Nigeria, the quest for responsible leadership must focus on structural changes that make it easy to identify and elect into office men and women of vision who can push this nation forward into the prosperous future. It must cut at the heart of our nation's character, which makes leadership a source of livelihood rather than service to the people, and hinders the emergence of responsible, visionary, and credible leadership. Thank you. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, in my heart, I know that I do believe we shall overcome. We shall overcome.